It had been almost a year since I'd seen Rain, my brother's best friend, the golden boy with the easy laugh and unreadable eyes. I always told myself I'd outgrown the crush. That those summers when I used to watch him from the staircase, laughing in the kitchen with my brother, were just teenage things, nothing serious. But when I saw his name light up on my phone that rainy Friday evening, something in my chest kicked. Asterisk. You free tonight? The message read. Wanna hang? Been a while. Asterisk. I stared at the screen, rereading the words like they might shift if I blinked. My brother wasn't in town. He'd gone skiing for the weekend. So why was Rayan texting me? Asterisk. Yeah, I'm free, I replied, then added, Your place? Asterisk. He answered almost instantly. Yeah, come by around 7. Asterisk. By the time I got there, the rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like wet pavement. Rayan opened the door with that same crooked grin I remembered, warm, casual, as if no time had passed. He was wearing a loose gray t-shirt and black joggers, hair slightly damp, barefoot like he always used to be around the house. Asterisk. Damn, you got taller, he said, stepping aside to let me in. Asterisk. I laughed, more out of nerves than anything. You didn't get shorter. Asterisk. The house felt the same. Dim lighting, old movie posters, the faint scent of sandalwood. Comfortable in a way that made me both nostalgic and uneasy. He handed me a soda and flopped onto the couch. I sat a little distance away, trying not to seem awkward. But every second stretched longer than it should have. Asterisk. Still at the university? He asked. Asterisk. Yeah, final year. Asterisk. Time flies. He looked over at me, then added, You've changed. In a good way. Asterisk. It was nothing, just a comment. But the way he said it, the pause before in a good way, made my pulse skip. I smiled without answering. Pretending to sip from my can. Asterisk. We ended up watching some documentary he'd been obsessed with lately, something about deep-sea divers and isolation. It was halfway through when I noticed how close we'd ended up. On the couch, my arm brushed his every time I shifted. And when he leaned forward to grab the remote, his shoulder lingered against mine longer than it needed to. Asterisk. You always this quiet? He asked, not looking at me. Asterisk. Only when I don't know what to say. Asterisk. He chuckled softly, still focused on the screen. I like that. Means you're not trying too hard. Asterisk. I didn't know what to do with that. It was the kind of comment that sat somewhere between friendly and something more. Dangerous territory. I tried to focus on the television, but my mind kept drifting to his voice, his scent. The casual way his fingers tapped against his knee. Asterisk. Around midnight, he stood up and stretched. You should just stay over. It's late, too late to head back. Asterisk. I hesitated, even though I already knew I wouldn't say no. You sure? Asterisk. He shrugged. Couch pulls out. Sheets are clean. I'll grab you a pillow. Asterisk. There was nothing suspicious about it. We were grown, friends, almost family. But as he disappeared into the hallway, my heart thudded too loudly. I hadn't been alone with him like this in years. Not since that one summer where I caught him watching me swim and wondered, briefly, if I'd imagined the look in his eyes. Asterisk. He came back with a folded blanket and a pillow tucked under his arm. You good with this? Asterisk. Perfect, I said, avoiding his gaze. Asterisk. He helped me pull out the couch bed, then stood there for a second like he wanted to say more. But instead he just gave me a tired smile. Night. Asterisk. Night. Asterisk. After he disappeared into his room, I lay there in the dark, blanket pulled to my chin, listening to the faint creaks of the house settling. I should have been exhausted, but my eyes refused to close. Every moment replayed on a loop, the invitation, the touches, the looks. I couldn't tell if I was building castles out of shadows or if something real was shifting between us. Asterisk. I turned onto my side, staring at the closed hallway door, and whispered to no one, What are you doing, Rayan? Asterisk. The silence answered. Thick and unyielding. Asterisk. I didn't know it then, but that night would be the beginning of everything unraveling. Asterisk. I woke to the soft clatter of dishes and the low hum of music drifting from the kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee pulled me from the fold-out couch and into the dim morning light spilling through the blinds. My neck ached from the stiff mattress, but the tightness in my chest had nothing to do with sleep. Rayan stood at the stove, stirring something in a pan. He wore the same joggers from the night before, but he'd changed into a clean white t-shirt. His hair was still damp from the shower, curling slightly at the ends. He looked relaxed, like this was just a normal Saturday morning and not the aftermath of a night where everything felt like it might tilt into something else. Morning, he said without turning around. Morning, I replied, voice hoarse. Hope. You slept all right? I did. A lie. I'd slept in bursts, waking up from dreams I couldn't fully remember, each one tinged with Rayan's voice. He set a plate of scrambled eggs and toast on the counter and motioned for me to sit. I made too much, so don't be shy. We ate mostly in silence. I watched the way he buttered his toast, the absent-minded tapping of his fingers against the coffee mug. His presence filled the space so effortlessly, and yet I felt like I was holding my breath around him. After breakfast, we moved to the living room. The sky outside had turned cloudy again, a pale gray curtain draped over the city. The mood shifted with it, quieter, more introspective. Rayan leaned back against the couch cushions, eyes on me like he was deciding something. Remember that dumb game we used to play? Truth or truth? He asked suddenly. I smiled, surprised. Yeah, we made it sound deep, but it was just an excuse to pry into each other's lives. Still works, he said with a half smile. Want to play? I hesitated. All right. You first, he nodded thoughtfully. Okay, what's something you've never told anyone? A loaded question. I considered lying, saying something safe. But instead I said, I almost dropped out last semester. Had a rough time, didn't tell my family, didn't want the judgment. Rayan's expression softened. Thanks for telling me. He took a moment before asking, ever had a crush on someone close to your brother? My heart thudded. I looked away, pretending to think. No, I said, forcing the word out. My voice didn't even sound like mine. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. My turn, I said, changing the subject. Ever been in love? He exhaled, long and slow. No, not love, but there was someone. A guy? It didn't last? The admission hung between us, quiet and disorienting. I looked at him, unsure what to say, unsure what I could say. There had always been something unspoken between us, but this felt like a door creaking open. When was that? I asked. Years ago, before I understood what it meant. I haven't really talked about it. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. I wondered if he knew I was struggling to stay composed, if he could hear the storm building behind my silence. A phone buzzed. Rayan glanced at his screen, and something shifted in his face. His jaw tightened. Posture straightened. Sorry, one sec. He stood and walked into the hallway to take the call. I heard him say my brother's name. My stomach twisted. When he came back, his warmth had cooled. He sat down, but the space between us felt wider now. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah. Just stuff. He didn't explain. The mood turned brittle. We stopped playing the game. The TV came on, but neither of us really watched it. The easy rhythm from the night before had vanished. He was suddenly more careful with his words, like something unsaid had wedged itself between us. That evening, the clouds finally gave way to rain. Rayan stood by the window, arms crossed, watching it fall. I stayed seated, unsure how to close the distance. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. I'm glad I did. He looked at me then, expression unreadable. Me too. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to ask what changed, why his eyes no longer lingered. But the words sat heavy in my throat. That night, there were no shared glances. No soft confessions. Just silence. A kind that didn't invite closeness, but warned against it. I lay in the dark again, the ceiling blurred by shadows. The ache in my chest sharper now. And for the first time, I wondered if I had mistaken kindness for something else entirely. The The next few days passed in a haze of confusion and second-guessing. I replayed every detail of that weekend, examining his glances, the tone of his voice, the way he had pulled away after the phone call with my brother. I kept asking myself whether I'd imagined the connection, whether I'd wanted it too badly. Back at campus, everything felt muted. The lectures dragged. The cafeteria buzzed with conversations I couldn't follow. I found myself checking my phone more often than usual, hoping for a message that never came. Rayan had gone silent. Not a single text. Not even a meme, like he used to send randomly at 2 a.m. I thought about reaching out. I even typed out a few messages. Hey, everything okay? Or had a good time last weekend, but none of them felt right. I deleted them all. If he wanted to talk, he would. A week later, I saw him. It was unplanned. I'd gone to pick up a hoodie I'd left at my brother's place. He hadn't told me Rayan would be there, and for a moment, when I stepped through the door, I wished I hadn't come at all. Rayan was in the living room, lounging on the floor with my brother and 2 other friends, playing some video game. He glanced up when he saw me, gave me a brief nod, nothing more, Didn't know you were coming. He said, casual, distant, Didn't know you were here, I replied. Matching his tone, I felt my brother watching us, his eyes flickering between us with faint curiosity, but he didn't say anything. I grabbed my hoodie, pretended not to notice how Rayan avoided looking at me directly, before I could leave. My brother called out, we're ordering food if you want to stay. I hesitated. I didn't want to stay, but something in me, maybe pride, maybe stubbornness, made me sit back down on the edge of the couch. For the next hour, I watched Rayan laugh with the others, joke like nothing had changed, but I saw it. The way he avoided any contact with me, the way his shoulders tensed whenever I shifted too close, and then something unexpected happened. One of the guys, Aaron, nudged Rayan and said, you still seeing that guy from the climbing gym? I froze. Rayan looked caught off guard for a split second, then gave a tight laugh. Not anymore. That was a one-time thing. My brother raised an eyebrow. Since when do you date guys? Rayan shrugged, playing it off. I don't really date anyone, just vibe, I guess. The air in the room shifted. My brother seemed amused, the others intrigued. No one pressed. It became another joke by the time the food arrived. But I sat there, silent, trying to process what I'd just heard. So there was someone, and it wasn't me. The realization landed like a stone in my stomach. I wasn't special. I wasn't even memorable. Just a placeholder for a night when the house was quiet and he didn't want to be alone. After dinner. I made an excuse and left. Outside, the cold bit into my skin, but I welcomed it. At least it felt real. I walked for blocks without knowing where I was going, just needing distance from the house, from my brother, from RYA, and later that night. He texted ... sorry if tonight was weird. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't enough. Not even close? Still, I responded. It's fine, I shouldn't have come. He replied almost instantly. You had every right to. I just didn't expect to see you. I typed out a dozen replies and deleted them all. What I wanted to say was, why did you invite me over that night? Why did you look at me like you wanted something real, then treat me like a stranger? Instead I sent, you made your feelings pretty clear. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then nothing. The silence hurt more than a rejection ever could, because it confirmed what I was too scared to admit. He'd never planned to let me in. I was just a complication he hadn't expected. A moment of vulnerability he regretted. I turned off my phone and lay back in the dark, the room silent except for the thrum of traffic outside. In that stillness, I realized something that made my chest ache. I hadn't just been hurt, I'd been betrayed, not by his rejection, but by the kindness that had felt like a promise. The days blurred into weeks, and I stopped checking my phone for his name. At some point, the ache shifted, No longer a sharp sting, but a dull, persistent throb that lingered just beneath the surface. I buried myself in routine, lectures, late-night study sessions, the occasional party where I pretended to laugh at jokes that didn't land. I told myself I was fine, that people drift, that some stories aren't meant to last beyond a single night. But denial has a way of cracking open when you least expect it. It was a Friday evening when it happened. My brother had invited me to his apartment to hang out, just us, he promised. No surprises. I hesitated before agreeing. I still hadn't told him anything. I didn't know how to explain what had happened when I barely understood it myself. When I arrived, the living room was quiet, a movie paused on the screen. My brother was in the kitchen grabbing drinks. I flopped onto the couch and tried to ignore the way memories clung to this place, the fold-out couch, the way the light fell across the hardwood floor, the silence we once shared. A voice said behind me. I turned. Rayan stood at the threshold, a hesitant smile tugging at his lips. My stomach tightened. My brother poked his head in, completely unaware. Hope it's not weird. Rayan was already here when I got back. You guys haven't seen each other in a while? I forced a smile. Yeah, no big deal. But it was a big deal. I could feel it in the way my palms started to sweat, in the way Rayan's eyes kept flicking toward me, cautious. As soon as my brother ducked back into the kitchen, Rayan moved closer. Can we talk? He asked, voice low. I don't know, I replied. Can we? His expression faltered. I deserve that. I stood up, walked a few steps away. I couldn't look at him. Not without remembering everything, the softness of his voice that night, the warmth of his kitchen. The way he'd vanished without explanation. You left me in the dark, I said quietly. You didn't just pull away, you disappeared. I know, he said. I didn't handle it right. No, you didn't. Silence stretched between us. I heard my brother clinking bottles in the kitchen, oblivious. The distant sound of laughter from the neighbors outside. My heart beat too loud in my ears. Rayan stepped closer. I panicked. After that weekend, it felt real. Too real. And then your brother called, and it reminded me of how close everything was, how quickly things could get complicated. You weren't afraid of things getting complicated, I said, finally turning to face him. You were afraid of being honest? He nodded, eyes heavy. I've spent a lot of time pretending I'm okay with people not knowing who I really am. But with you, I didn't want to pretend, and that scared me. Then you should have said something. I know, and I'm sorry. I wanted to protect myself, and in the process, I hurt you. For a long moment, neither of us moved. I studied his face, searching for sincerity. This wasn't the Rayan who smiled through everything. This was someone stripped bare, his words trembling on the edge of truth. I thought I was just a moment for you, I said. A distraction. You weren't, he said quickly. You were the first time in a long while I felt seen. Like really seen. And that terrified me because I didn't know what to do with it. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of his words settle in. Why now? I asked. Why come back now? Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. And I hated that I left things like that. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to tell you the truth. Behind us, my brother shouted something from the kitchen. We both laughed, unexpectedly, and the sound was softer than I remembered. Less painful. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said. I get it. I'd ask for time, not a second chance. Just time to prove I mean what I say. The air between us shifted. Not with resolution, but with the possibility of it. A flicker of something tender and unfinished. Okay, I said quietly. We'll see. He smiled, relieved, cautious, hopeful. We didn't touch, we didn't make promises. But for the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something unsure, delicate, and real, something not yet broken, something worth staying for.